Alrighty, everybody. It's Friday. It is Hotline time. We're streaming on YouTube. We're streaming on LinkedIn. You can find us at CUIHotline.org. We are now at 85 level 2 certified clients in the Summit 7 portfolio. So if you have questions about how we were able to do that, let us know. We're going to be at 100 pretty soon. We're already starting to talk about press releases and blogs about 100 certified clients, which is going to be an awesome celebration. Let's see, it's the last weekend before daylight savings time, thankfully. So the sun will not go down before 7 p.m. until like November, which will be great, hopefully, for everybody's golf game. So so we can all get rid of daylight savings time. You got to talk about cybersecurity regulation and reform. Get rid of daylight savings. What are we doing? Let's all talk about something we can agree on, right? Like that's the real meaningful policy change that everybody wants. Anyways, Daniel, what's up, man? How are you?
Doing good. Just busy weeks these days. Like somebody was asking me the other day, like, how you been? I'm like, I've been great if I can come up for air for a minute. You know, it's like there's just so much stuff going on right now. I have other people on the team and they're like, Daniel, we're getting clients that DibCAC's out here like assessing a crazy amount of people in April and May. Yep. It's like we got other people that are like, we're about to lose millions of dollars of contracts if we can't show a CMMC level 2 score above 88 within like a month, right? And it's like, and then you still have these companies that are like, I kind of like defense work, but I don't really want to pull the trigger on CMMC. And so until I have to, I'm not really going to make a decision. Like I had a call like that today as well, right? Where they're just now starting the journey and they honestly don't even know if the juice is worth the squeeze, which is fine, business decision, right? But the fact that we're this far into the game with large, especially large companies is shocking to me. But my buddy Steve talked to somebody this morning, 30, 40 people, DibCAC assessment scheduled in like a month, and they have to have a score. I mean, just all of these things. Like, anyways, it is getting crazy out there from the CMMC, from the primes, from the DoD.
Yeah, it's a little bit different when DibCAC calls you, because when DibCAC calls you, there's no like maybe we'll go after this opportunity or maybe this or that. When DibCAC calls, they want the receipts and they want them right away, and they don't take weekends off. So you don't get a lot of time. Anyways, we always do a week in review. Lots of stuff to talk about. You want to talk about shared service enclaves? Are they possible?
Yeah. So one of the questions that I'm fielding a lot from larger enterprises is around a single centralized enclave that all of their operating companies can leverage. So basically, hey, can we basically become the ESP for all of our opcos? And the short answer to that is yes. We have a lot of organizations leaning that direction to have a centralized deployment and then multiple subscriptions underneath charging back VDI usage or Azure consumption usage back to the opcos that are leveraging it. And then doing correlation of users back to organizations and governance and doing all that kind of fun stuff. But long story short, yeah, you can absolutely do it. So if you want to have kind of an ultimate governed Microsoft Gov high environment that the controls are in, and then all of the nuances for SSP drift, I'll call it, come down to on-prem controls for each of those sites, or maybe they don't have any because they're only VDI. Like you can start doing those types of things. Definitely worth exploring, especially if you're looking to get compliant fast with multiple different entities, right? It's like taking them all and silo them all into their own environment. You're going to lose speed very, very quickly by doing that. So anyway, it's just kind of an interesting topic that was brought up a few times this week. Thought it might be worth sharing to the collective team here. So
yeah, absolutely. And speed is the name of the game these days. We've got a couple of question and scenarios that we heard on calls and social media posts this week where people they need to go real fast, real fast. We'll get into those here in a little bit. All righty. My favorite thing to do, listen to obscure congressional hearings and try to suss out whether anybody actually shares the same concerns about cybersecurity that the DIB has, that the security industry has, that the regulators have, because it's the spaces in between those things where I find the comparing and the contrasting are the most interesting to talk about. There was a hearing 2 weeks ago, a full House Armed Services Committee hearing. It was called Speed to Scale, Revitalizing the Defense Industrial Base. You can find it on YouTube. It is 2 hours and 33 minutes and 5 seconds long. I listened to the entire thing. Does anybody in chat want to guess how many times during this hearing that was focused on industrial base revitalization, speed of acquisition, shipbuilding, defense industrial base workforce, weapon system capacity, blah, 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 especially given current events, how many times cybersecurity and or CMMC came up as a concern? Anybody out there? Any guesses? Bueller, chat? Zero times. Not once did anyone on the full House Armed Services Committee ask the guy in charge of defense acquisitions, literally the secretary in charge of acquisition and sustainment, about cybersecurity or about CMMC. And you can sort of read two things from that. One, they don't think it's a problem. They don't think it's a problem because they ain't asking about it. The other one is they ain't helping you. There is no talk about appropriations, tax credits, offsets, this, that, or the other. So it's a no news kind of a situation. Read into that what you will. Not so long ago, when Duffy was confirmed, they went through the standard boilerplate saying, are you going to review all the programs? And he was like, we're going to review all the programs, including CMMC. A couple people out there were like, here it comes. They're reviewing the program. It's going away. And then there was a hearing about a year ago, and they said, oh, CMMC, maybe we can do some tax credits. And now there's a hearing 2 days ago. It doesn't even come up. So take that context for what you will. You can check that out on their YouTube channel. The House Armed Service Committee actually does a great job of uploading all their live hearings. They also had one, I think it was yesterday, with Bridge Colby, who's he is the Undersecretary for Defense Industrial Base Policy. He wrote an excellent book called The Strategy of Denial prior to the war in Ukraine, talking about how Ukraine is not a strategic interest of the United States, but Taiwan is. Anyways, check out the book, check out the hearing, U.S. Defense Strategy and Posture. Okay, bonus question. How many times do you think cybersecurity and CMMC assurance came up in that hearing? That hearing, for your reference, was 2 hours, 35 minutes, and 35 seconds. How many times do you think it came up in that hearing?
I gotta hope more than zero. Maybe
no, it was zero. It was zero. It was zero.
Zero.
Yep, also zero. So there you go, everybody. Do with that information what you will. Let's see. Yeah, Pride, when you win, Michelle, you win. Nicholas, no, not even one time. Okay, let's see here. We just gave a webinar on developing RFPs for vetting managed service providers. We've said this many times. Your decision in who you get married to is probably one of the most impactful decisions you'll ever make in your normal life. Who you get married to for your MSP is definitely one of the most impactful decisions you'll make in your business's life if you're a defense contractor. Vetting your MSP thoroughly is probably one of the most important processes that 99% of the DIB should be going through, and most people don't know how to do it. Somebody said, how do I tell if my MSP is worth a damn? Daniel, you want to walk through the highlights here?
Yeah, so we, Jacob, you and I did a webinar a couple weeks ago now, and made this available for download. And so one of the things, and maybe Dustin can put the link in chat, when you're looking through this, right, it's like, how many tenants have they deployed? Like, what's their overall strategy? How many actual people do they have with any level of CMMC certifications, right? What's their process for making an SSP POAM? If there's export control requirements, how does that feed into your design of what we're doing, right? Can you even support me? You don't have to be CMMC certified, but what's their timeline if they do plan to be, right? Do they have a shared responsibility matrix? Like, going down through all of these kind of different things, it's really, really, really important to know, like, man, is my company actually going to be able to trust this MSP? Because the questions we're getting now, Jacob, are a lot of questions around, I went with a product that we thought was a slam dunk, And then the encrypted CUI is CUI thing came out. We realized we're having to completely change our direction for CMMC. That call was yesterday, by the way. And the other side of it is, we were with somebody and we're going through this is a call I have scheduled for next week. We are getting certified in a month, but need to switch MSPs. We can't really switch MSPs in 30 days, number one. But number two, switching MSPs would most definitely lead to significant change, at least a high consideration of it, right? So again, you start looking at that piece too, and it's like, okay, so evaluation of tool sets and then evaluations of MSPs are both like hitting the fan right now because people are realizing they're scheduling their cert and they're not compliant, or their MSP overpromised and underdelivered. And that's a little problematic as well.
Well, let me ask you this question, Daniel. Why can't I switch MSPs in 30 days before my assessment?
The problem is that MSP has to have full alignment of the shared responsibility matrix and make sure that the implementation done by that existing MSP was actually compliant. We basically have to come in and do a gap assessment and say, hey, are you guys actually okay? Are you good to go? Because if an MSP can't get you to CMMC and they're bailing on you, chances are the implementation they did doesn't have enough documentation to back up that it's actually compliant in the first place.
Yeah.
Or they might have moved you to a commercial Microsoft cloud, that's happened before, and not a government cloud, and you thought you were in the government cloud, and now we have to do a migration, right? So, I mean, so many little things when you look at it where it's like, no one can just inherently trust that the MSP that you're leaving that supposedly did a bad job did a good job in something. We have to reevaluate everything. And that takes months to do, quite honestly, right?
I mean, and this is just a final note on vetting MSPs. This is just the rule of thumb I've been telling everybody. It ain't 2019 anymore. It ain't 2023 anymore. We're way past the market rollout of CMMC. We're well into the phased rollout of CMMC. Phase 2 starts in like 9 months, right? It's not that far away. You got the summer, you got the holidays. I mean, you're talking not a lot of time. I think it's like 160 working days or something like that between now and the start of phase 2. If you are going with an MSP that at this point has no certified CMMC level 2 clients, that is a bright yellow light to me.
Yeah.
Like, am I going to be the first company that you go through this process with? Why do you not, if you have such expertise in this field, why do you have no clients that have gone through this process? You had no early adopters at all. I would just be very wary of anybody who says, we can absolutely do this. No question. No big deal. We got it. We could do it for super cheap. We could do it for super fast. We've never done it before. Like, it should just cause you to stop and be like, I don't know if that is true. Like I said, we got 85 clients. The reason we tell people we got 85 clients, one, it's freaking awesome. And two, we know what we do works. So, the people you go with don't have to have 85, but if the people that you do go with have 85, you can probably have some pretty good confidence that they know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying?
And hey, the MSP Collective is a great website. So if you're actually looking at a place to start these conversations, go there. Because that's going to list MSPs that are certified. So you at least know they know how to get through certification. Yeah. That's a high likelihood that they can get you through a certification.
Yeah, absolutely. All righty, let's get into these scenario questions that we had this week, because I mean, this is getting more and more common. Okay, true story. This was from somebody I know. 30-person shop headed into Cyber Phase 3. Congratulations. Customer just said we need CMMC level 2 self in 3 months or no $20 million. No internal IT guy, no security program, all ITAR, currently in 365 commercial. What do we do?
You don't get $20 million. And I hate to say it that way, but like, if it was
a true story, by the way, I know you can't tell, like, for sure. Take everything with a grain of salt you hear on the internet. This is a real story from somebody I know personally.
Yeah, and that's not to be insensitive, but here's a couple things. Under old DFAR 7019, you could basically put any SPRS score that you wanted. The lowest being -203, the highest being 110. I knew people that won contracts with a -203. Do I agree with that? Not necessarily, but hey, it happened.
That's how the game works.
In the new Fund 7021 world, there's a minimum SPRS score that you have to enter under CMMC level 2 self-attestation. And that minimum score is 88. Okay, that might not seem too bad, 88 out of 110. However, all of the hard controls, basically, the 5 and the 3 points, you have to keep in. You can't POAM those as point reductions, right? So you can only pick a certain set of controls that can even be POAMable. They just so happen to be some of the easier controls to meet. So, okay, so now that there's a minimum bar, and now I'm hamstrung by the types of controls I can deduct or not. If you have no internal IT staff, if you're in the wrong cloud provider, and you want to go with a qualified company that can get you there, none that I know can get you there in a compliant state, meeting 88 within 3 months. I mean, most of the popular partners and providers like us, minimum backlogs of a month, right, to 6 weeks. So it's like, that's a third of your time gone, right? And if an MSP doesn't have any technical resource on your side to work with, right? And that's
a good point.
That's really a great beneficial point, because they have historical knowledge, right? If that person doesn't exist and it's the COO of the company of this 30-person shop, for example, or CEO or CDO or whoever, that's problematic because they have a full-time job too. Right. So now we're talking with someone that doesn't really know, even though their environment might not be that complex, that's kind of running hands-on keyboard a little bit and trying to fill us in. That person's also having to review all the compliance documentation that we ship them. And so there's not enough cycles in a 3-month period to get to that minimum viable score and be able to be compliant. Now, here's one tiny loophole. And I talked about this on a podcast episode I had with Dawn. SPRS doesn't require you to validate you're on FedRAMP clouds. Now, should you put 110 and not be on FedRAMP clouds? I would say no. DIBCAC, and this is the way that I wish the DoD would have provided guidance. DIBCAC, when they come in and do an assessment, if it's on a non-compliant platform, they make those controls not met. But that guidance isn't clear in SPRS scoring. So a lot of people will put perfect scores in non-compliant cloud environments. So all that to say is you will not be gaining $20 million unless you probably lie.
I think, and listen, no judgment. Everybody wants to know what their options are. Everybody's looking out for number one at the end of the day. I can tell you that, the person I was talking to who was asking me about this, when I sort of laid out the situation, suddenly became very interested in how whistleblowing under the False Claims Act works. And so for the business owners out there, just so you know, this is somebody that was talking about this. I mean, I've known this person for a long time. They've been talking to this company for about a year, and they got blown off. And sure enough, they were like, how does that False Claims Act thing work again? Because if I'm going to lose my job, then, so it's just crazy. It's a real actual situation. Like Brian said, ITAR should not go in commercial 365. So please keep your voice down when you're saying that you're out loud admitting to export control violations and that you're not ready for CMMC. Like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. But
I want to see people coming against not only false claims acts around CUI and mishandling of 7012. I haven't seen a lot of joint suits in the sense of export control violations bundled into that, right? So you kind of a 1-2 punch, quite honestly.
Absolutely. And related to this story, they work with a consultant who does, cyber stuff, like helping people figure out the process, get them linked up, all that stuff. Cyber is its own world, right? The rumor that I'm hearing is that the word on the street is that all cybers will require CMMC level 2 self-assessment by default. So I think a lot of people were like, oh, we're overdoing OTAs, we're doing cybers, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're special. Apparently it's not as special as people think. So people are finding out they need CMMC level 2, and they're finding out they need CMMC level 2 in like 90 days. So you might be able to avoid the certification cost, but you're still going to have to deal with the same implementation. So just do with that information what you will. I haven't been able to get the official on the letterhead saying that that's true, but that's what I'm at least hearing in relation to.
I remember early CMMC, they're like, yeah, it won't even those clauses don't even exist in civil world. It's like it actually is now existing, obviously.
Yeah. Trey brings up a good point. We hear this scenario quite a bit. They're like, well, could I stand up just a standalone enclave in a month? The emails would have to change. It'd have to be like a limited subset of users. It depends on how the CUI data flow works. If you just need the storage, it's not impossible to get that very narrow scenario set up in something like 3 months. Is that true? And why wouldn't that work? What does that cause?
Yeah, these are fun. So could you set up a separate environment? Sure. Okay. Let's go buy a single GCC high seat. Let's register a domain. Let's configure the environment compliantly. Let's not do a migration, right? Okay, let's not do a migration. Let's just get 5 people in there and call it a day. Here's a little bit of the problem. Number one, like still configuring and writing all the compliance documentation and having your team review, right? All the good consultants have a lot of clients right now that they're working through this process, right? They can't dedicate 40 hours a week to you. So that's number one, right? But the bigger thing to be aware of is our little friend significant change. So many people are building enclave environments like 5 seats. And even though increasing seat count doesn't impact significant change, making significant architectural boundary changes does. So the minute you win that contract and you realize to execute that contract, the rest of your company at 30 people have to be in scope, and you have to bring on prim in scope and all these other workstations and servers and expansions of networks, which is written in significant change, you're back to square one. So now what do you have to do? You have to go back and say, hey, our environment that we attested to isn't able to execute the contract. We need to get the rest of our environment compliant, resubmit our score. And is the contracting officer going to allow that? No, they're assuming the score you're submitting for your boundary can support the work that you're about to be awarded.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Like they're making that assumption. So if you start bringing in all these other systems that weren't part of your SPRS scoring for execution of the contract, false claims, because now you've misreported yourself, or now you have a lower SPRS score, right, than 88, and now you're in a problem. Now you have 6 months to remediate from 88 to 110. To Nicholas's point, that doesn't even touch the ITAR piece of it, right? So, I mean, putting that data in GCC high for net new is one thing, because this is the fun thing about contractual obligations. DFAR 7021 is a net new contractual obligation. You can build a separate new environment for just that CUI coming in with a separate SPUR score for legacy CUI, I'll call it. But ITAR doesn't have that. It's been around since the 70s. So like that, if that data is in a non-compliant environment, you don't have a choice but to migrate that or face penalties. So I say all this to say it, and this is why I kind of get on a little bit of a soapbox a little bit. Building a new enclave is not a bad approach. Building a new enclave that can't support contract award that you're pursuing is stupid, because it's not going to check the box sufficiently enough without having to go through a reassessment and likely a lower score, and then jeopardize losing the contract when you update that score to below the initial requirement of contract award. I would love to see if SPRS had notification for if an 88 drop or anything dropped below an 88, and a notification was sent out to anybody to say, hey, these guys are now not compliant, or it just doesn't let you enter anything below an 88.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Now, listen, cut costs, increase revenue, business, right? Very simple formula. Would you say that if we're anticipating $20 million coming in, that if I told you that my budget for this all in was somewhere between 0.5% and 1% of that amount of money, is that a realistic idea for going full in, fully managed, full migration, GCC high, everything from top to bottom? We have no internal team, right? We're not hiring anybody anytime soon. We have no idea what to look for, if we could even find them or afford them. So we're talking, can I get in there somewhere around 50 grand, top to bottom? It's $20 million, but I want to keep the $20 million. I don't want to spend it on security. In other regulated industries, they're spending somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 8%.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I hear scenarios like this, people come back and they're like, they say their budget, and when you look at the total scope, what they're really saying is we want to spend around 1% or less. There's just a huge gap there. What do you think, Daniel?
They're probably 30-person shop, assuming they get maybe not a CMMC expert, but some sort of technical representation inside, even if it's a mid-tier sysadmin, and the cost of gov licensing, migration, implementation, and then compliant managed services and documentation that can make that happen.
Remember, this is stealth assessment, so we're not including the cost of an assessment here.
Yeah, they're probably right at 1%, which is about 300,000. If you look at it, if you look at all of it,
right?
And that's a mid to junior level role that they would hire to basically be point person to coordinate things and have some sort of technical presence there, even though junior in role. Yeah, I mean, you're probably looking about 1%, maybe a hair more when you look at the actual cost of the assessment to get there.
Yeah. Well, and they need it in 90 days. It's like, can you find and hire, onboard, get that person up to speed, have them do all the work by themselves, and then go through the whole process in 60 days?
So that's the problem that we're seeing more and more of. People are coming to us, and they say this somewhat tongue in cheek, but one university actually told me this straight up. They said, Daniel, money is not the problem anymore. Yeah. Like, it's gotten to such high levels in our organization, and the dollar value of these contracts is so high that they're finding a way to get the money. It's time. And the problem is people can't really buy time, right? Yeah. And so it's one of those things that we're having to navigate really hard conversations with, not because they can't afford our services. It's because they have demands like this, where it's like, in 3 months, I have to show that I have an 88, I've done nothing, and I have no one to help me right now. It's like, I'm sorry. Like, maybe you'll win the next one.
Yeah.
John, yeah, to your point, like having that point person inside their org to manage that CMMC program. You know, luckily at a 30-person org, chances are things like change control and things will have a smaller footprint. So there shouldn't be as much demand as larger companies, but it's still got to be someone's job. To John's point, someone has to have that role. And somebody asked me this question on LinkedIn the other day. They said, hey, we have an MSP right now, and they say that they're a compliant MSP. But I just realized, like, we haven't really been paying them attention much. Like, we haven't really been like checking in on them, and we're getting closer to our CMMC cert. Like, should I go check in on them and just make sure? I was like, yeah, you at least need to have that person to have oversight of the MSP that's doing the work. Even if they say they're a CMMC compliant MSP, like, you have to have that accountability right now, right? It's like, it's one of those things where, I'll use this analogy because it's top of mind. Everybody, I'm getting married. Super stoked about it.
Hell yeah. Congratulations.
Next month. I had the role of securing my ring, and it was super cool. It's going to be our thumbprints on it in the shape of a heart and all this stuff.
Sick.
And the jeweler says, hey, I can't send you the CAD drawing. We're just going to print it and kind of see what happens.
Did he say it was CUI?
Didn't say it was CUI.
That'd be hilarious. I wish I would have found out the jeweler. I would have totally played a prank on him.
Well, it came out, this ring that they claim is beautiful is hot garbage. But because I didn't get a CAD drawing and do governance on my side, now I'm dealing with the aftermath of that, which is like, we're 40.
You get married in a month?
We get married in a month. I've got a ring that they were promising me was going to be what we wanted. Sound like a familiar CMMC trajectory, right? So just to like kind of tie in those things, it's like, you have to provide oversight, because ultimately, in this analogy, I'm the one getting married and I need the ring, right? You're the one that has to be CMMC certified to continue to do business.
All right. Well, before we get, there's some good questions in chat. I guess let's just go further into the torture fest here. Man, this one was from a thread on Reddit. My goodness. Okay. We get 5-year NAVC maintenance contracts. The customer stopped our latest order because we don't have CMMC or DFAR 7020 assessment. The customer says we are not able to make this award until this is completed. Where do I start 40 employees. Extra detail, no ITAR information. So assume they have no context for what any of this means. They are literally waiting on their next order under this contract, and the customer was like, no more orders until you get your status into the system. I'm going to assume that since this is a non-ITAR manufacturer with 40 employees, they don't have staff internally. That's probably why they're asking about it on Reddit. And I'm also going to assume that they can't afford to miss a lot of awards in a row. This feels like a disaster. I mean,
it does feel like a disaster. However, there's a stupid little contractual loophole here.
Sweet.
That will end up being closed rather rapidly because of the removal of 7019 and the conversion of things into the 7997 clause and CMMC becoming basically the Spurs criteria moving forward, not standalone 7019 self-attestation, but CMMC level 2 self-attestation. The language right there where it says, because we don't have a CMMC or 7020 assessment, the question back to them was, if it's a 7020 requirement on your contract, assess yourself with a gap assessment, put the score in, pray to God they're going to take it.
Good point.
If it's a 7021 clause, that minimum score of 88 comes into play.
Yeah.
And you're basically, going back to the last conversation we just had, you're basically screwed.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you have to have that minimum score, you haven't started, you've got to assess your data flow. Okay, 40 people, we're probably assuming everything's in scope. Okay.
Right.
I've got to look at my cloud providers that I'm using, right? Email, file sharing, whatever it might be. I've got to look at, I probably don't have acceptable use policies. I probably don't maybe have physical access controls in my building. I might not have compliant endpoints or servers or network infrastructure. We're probably using an MSP at 40 people. They might not know what's happening because it's just a mom and pop MSP in my neighborhood. Like, you're in significant problem right now. So if I were this person and I was responding to this thread on the CMMC subreddit, the first question I'd ask out of the gate is it 7020 or 7021? Answer that question, because that might be your saving grace, at least for a little while.
Yeah, it would buy you some time for sure.
Yeah.
Man.
But if not, you have a long journey. Either way, you have a long journey. The question is, are you going to be able to win the contract while you figure it out? So
yeah. Oh, John, you can still see my giant bald head. All right. Let's see here. Here's a funny one. Contractors for U.S. Transcom are receiving a letter requiring them to complete an affirmation of continuous compliance with CMMC Level 2 assessment requirements in SPRS by March 2027, so a year from now, regardless of whether they handle FCI or CUI. Let's see. It also looks like they're mixing FCI and CUI requirements, especially regarding incident reporting obligations to authorities, since DFAR 7012 only applies to CUI, not FCI. Have you heard about this letter? Jonathan, see if you can copy that URL into chat one more time. Looks like it got cut off. I haven't seen that letter yet, but thanks for bringing it to our attention. It doesn't surprise me that they would be mixing these requirements because, that seems to be what they do. This is from U.S. Transcom.
Yeah, I'm actually on the site now. They have a CMMC section. You guys want to do some real-time snooping here? Let's give it a look here.
U.S. Transcom.
Let's see here.
It's a live show, folks.
The Defense Personnel Property Program. Accuracy and limitation of liability.
This is going to be everybody that's moving on active duty. There's going to be all PCS moves, things like that.
Here it is right here. Look, they even have a countdown timer.
Wow. Look at these guys.
Yeah. So if a company receives, stores, processes FCI or during the management or delivery of DP3 household goods shipments, you must comply with CMMC level 1 and not or and level 2. Level 1 by 2026, level 2 by 2027. All TSPs, domestic and international agents, storage facility, OADA, and hauling agents, creating companies, IT vendors, subcontractor labor. You are part of the cybersecurity chain of custody. Wow. Yeah, the permanent change of station joint task force provide an update advisory.
All right.
Domain change.
Pop quiz, everybody. Don't Google it. Pop quiz. How many military families execute a PCS move every year?
I mean, it's got to be tens of thousands, right?
400 to 600,000 military families undergo a PCS, permanent change of station move, annually. I'll tell you this, PCS moves suck. That process is one of the reasons I got out of the military. I hate moving. That's a lot of people moving around. That's a lot of data. I don't know anything about the Transcom PCS chain of custody. I would assume these are, moving companies and things like that. But wow, yeah. I'm very impressed, Transcom. Good job.
The International Association of Movers posted this. I'm assuming this is what basically their equivalent of their supply chain notification. You know what I mean?
Yes, gazillions move.
The DP3 program.
Let's see here. I don't know if you can pull this out of chat here, and this is the letter that Jonathan has. It's PDF, but I'll trust Jonathan here. Let's see here. Says 7,000. There's more than 7,000 licensed interstate carriers registered under FMCSA in the U.S., which represents household goods transportation industry. This is amazing. I'm learning in real time here. I know nothing about that industry. That's very interesting. Thank you, Jonathan, for bringing this up. Thanks, everybody, for helping us learn in real time here on the hotline.
All right, I got it pulled up. By the way, it's a lot harder to thank you, Copilot, for pulling that link out for me. All right, where's my screen share here? Let a time makes me feel fine. All right, CMMC UID. They have PII, which is considered CUI. Okay. It's interesting they at least call out what kind of CUI. I do low-key appreciate that to some extent, right? Phased approach towards CMMC. And this is their phased approach. Yeah. By March 15, 2026, applicable to each of the TSP information that processors at FCR CRI that are used in their performance.
It's interesting that they're like, if you process CUI, you have to attest to level 1.
Yeah, I think
I mean, hey,
yeah,
okay. I mean, that's not technically how that's supposed to work, but that's what it says. Hey, just producer Dustin, clip this. He's in that room over there. Clip this as a React video here. We're reacting in real time.
Yeah.
Okay, phase 2 by March 15th, 2027. Okay, so this is TOS. I missed what TOS stands for. This is tender. Oh, it's down there.
Oh,
tender of service activities. I'm sure that's an industry term. TOS activities. So they have a TOS phased rollout, which is different from the CMMC phased rollout. So their TOS phase 1 and phase 2 are not the same as the overall CMMC phased rollout. By March 15th, TSP contractors continuous compliance with CMMC level 2 that store FCI or CUI. So this is interesting. So everybody's saying they're mixing up FCI and CUI. It might be that they're mixing it up. It might also be that, like, this is an example of, it's not technically allowed according to policy, but they're accepting level 1 for CUI during this first phase, but then they're requiring level 2 for FCI in the second phase. So it's like lower floor, higher floor through the rollout. Now they might be mixing it up, or it might have been on purpose. I don't know, but that is an interesting pattern there.
And here's what's interesting. By March 15th, they have to have generated their CMMC UID.
That's a week from now.
Yeah. Dude, this is crazy.
Incident reporting here.
Yeah. Why is this in red, by the way? Does that mean it's not applicable to cyber incident reporting? Because that would be accurate. But
is there a red line at the top? Maybe they included it, or are they? It's in. I don't know. That part's in red too.
They just have random things in red. I don't quite understand that, but
Root level intrusion. I would love to survey the 7,000 companies in the moving supply chain and ask them, what is a root level intrusion?
Government assistance can be obtained.
Okay. Where's the money, Transcom? Let's see here.
Who's this Scott guy?
Scott TCJ. Is
Hey.
Scott here? Scott, are you in chat? Anybody know Scott?
DC3.
Okay.
NSA. We love the shared services, don't you, Jacob?
Yeah.
And it was approved by the Chief of Operations.
Shout out to Susan Sheehan over there at NSA CCC.
Defense Personal Property Management Office.
And then the DoD CIO website. Red. Okay, John says red is updates made from the last version. So the red lines are things that they added.
Oh,
gotcha. When was the last version, Jonathan? Do you know?
Is this dated? January 26th is when this one came out.
I don't know when the last one was. Interesting. So the one that was out before this was CMMC implementation plan. Oh, it says revisions within the document. It's a live show, everybody. It's a live show. Cut us some slack here. Okay, revisions within this document are highlighted in red. Okay, so they said update CMMC UID. Scroll down a little bit. See what else is in red.
Oh, TSPs.
So that's the UID requirement.
Yeah, they updated, put a timestamp to get the UIDs generated. They added.
So they released this in January and said you have to have it by mid-March.
Yeah.
Then they added the FCI line for incident reporting. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that call out.
And then anything else down here? They added the CIO website line. So I'd be interested to know when the previous version of this came out, because the only thing that they added was a resource link for CIO, incident reporting for FCI, which you were theoretically already doing for CUI, and then the CMMC UID requirement. So if they had a previous one like 6 months prior to that, then I mean, this is interesting regardless, but
well, it's also like, hey, make sure all your subcontractors are good.
Yeah, that's not in red though, so it would have already been there. So I'm interested, Jonathan, if you know, like, is this like the GSA thing we did the podcast on, where they had it for a long time and then they revised it and didn't really say anything about it, and just now everybody's sort of noticing it? I hadn't heard about this yet, so
I haven't either. It's the first time I've heard about it. What's interesting, they have on their main website, they have. Is it sharing it? No, it's not. They have a whole CMMC program tab. I have to imagine it's been here for a while.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you're moving that you know, the logistics behind moving military families is a big deal. So interesting. Yeah, we're gonna have to reach out to this Scott guy and see if we can get him on the show.
Yeah.
Cool.
All
right.
Hey, breaking news. Thanks for sharing.
This is awesome. This was great. All right. John said, we just had to do that on a bid request, provide our SPRS cage code and unique ID for our assessment validating CMMC level 2. Yeah.
So that's what's so funny about the DoD doesn't require CMMC pre-award. They don't, but they do require your CMMC UID and SPRS score. And so it's like, you don't have to show things to bid, but you have to show things to bid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's like you don't have to be, you know, 16 to see this movie, but you do have to have a driver's license.
Right.
Okay, Orion says, are the licenses for GCC High part of the cost if they already need a Microsoft account? Maybe the difference between commercial and GCC High, not to mention if they have existing ITAR.
Yeah, so the number I rattled off would include the cost of the GCC High licensing for those users. Because if they're in commercial, to your point, like they're not compliant with ITAR, if that is a data store of ITAR, right? Yeah, Microsoft's commercial cloud does not support it contractually.
Gotcha. Let's see. Customer wants us ITAR registered in the future. If we get that, can we still use our Summit 7 enclave?
Yeah, so we talked to a lot of companies about this. It's like at a very high level, ITAR requirements, U.S. persons or appropriate export control license, U.S. sovereign data stores in this case, Oregon export control license or encrypted carve out in friendly countries. I'm broad stroking a lot of that, but you kind of get it. So Summit 7 Enclave, when we deploy an Enclave, we deploy it in GCC High. Microsoft commits to only U.S. persons, and then our staff is only U.S. citizens, only using tools that are compliant as well. So when you look through all of those things, I would say probably 60 to 70% of the enclaves we deploy have to simultaneously meet ITAR requirements from those two things that I talked about, because so much controlled technical information is also ITAR. So it's like you got to end up meeting both simultaneously anyways.
Gotcha. Let's see here. Let's see what do we do besides just building enclaves? Is that all we do around here? Is just build?
We do so many fun things. We do a lot of migrations. We do Microsoft licensing. We do some other third-party licensing. We do compliance, gap assessments, policy and procedure creation. We do cleared work. That's a really big piece. We acquired a cleared company a couple of years ago, cleared cloud with Azure Secret. And I was also extending that to on-prem capabilities. We do cleared managed services as part of that too. So we're kind of just in the thick of the ecosystem when it comes to DoD requirements around either cleared or unclassed work. So
nice. All righty, let's see. Okay, if we are on-prem everything and migrate to the cloud after passing our level 2 assessment, would that be a significant change and therefore trigger another assessment?
I personally would say yes, because of the significance of that platform that you're moving from and to. Because of all the security controls that M365 has, if you're ripping and replacing what was on-prem with a completely different set of tools, now you might come to me and say, Daniel, but we're having the same settings between the two platforms. It's just a different way of rolling it out. I could see maybe a justification where it might not be a significant change, but with a platform like M365 or potentially even like ERP systems, it's a really tightrope when it comes to introducing that level of a platform and not triggering significant change. Like I know a company that I worked with to sell a migration from GCC to GCC High. When I walked through the conversation around significant change, they were like, it's 1-for-1 from the controls that we're implementing, and they were already certified. And so it's like, we're not deeming this a significant change because even though it's a different platform, it's the exact same controls rolled out in the exact same way. It's just ending in .us versus .com, right? Basically, I was like, okay, I can easily see that justification. But on-prem infrastructure to cloud, that seems to be a little bit of a bigger jump, in my opinion. But you get to basically define what that is for your organization, and then with a little bit of guidance the DoD is given. So yeah. I'm not the expert in it. No one actually is. Ask your lawyers, read significant change, and then whatever you do, define it early, what you consider a significant change, and then through the change control request process, vet it against that criteria every time.
Yeah.
Right. Because you ultimately get to decide. A C3PO is not responsible for telling you if you have a significant change or not.
Right. Exactly.
You have to report that. The self-reporting mechanism is really what it is.
Right. Yeah. John says it would be an expansion of network to the cloud, and that would trigger an assessment requirement. Let us know what you guys think in chat, because I think everybody knows when you read what significant change means and you hear the scenarios, everybody knows what the answer ought to be, right? And everybody also knows in reality the case that could be made that it isn't a significant change and the motivations behind making sure that you wouldn't have to trigger another assessment. The core problem to me is this is another one of those artifacts that are buried in the requirements, like NFO control tailoring in the appendix of 800-171, that stems from a time when the people who were writing the requirements, or the requirements that 171 is derived from, that existed in a federal environment in which assessments don't cost money, right? And when assessments don't cost money, of course, you would trigger a new assessment every time there's a significant change. Maybe that would change your rationale when assessments do cost money. Maybe it wouldn't, but I have a feeling that we keep rehashing this issue, and I think that's the core problem that it stems from, is that you have assessors, you have teams, you have budget, you have personnel, you have the license to do this work, and it doesn't actually cost you anything other than time. And so the perfect world theory in that environment was, yeah, of course we would just run a new assessment every time there's a change. We'll run a new assessment every time we change literally anything. Once that floats over into the Muggle world, that policy starts to cause a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So even though, big picture, that might be what the answer ought to be, is that really what the policy answer should be? And I don't think the DoD knows what the answer is going to be, and that leaves us in this gray area, which is an advantage, like we talk about, because if you define what significant change is and you really go after the gray area, you can save yourself a lot of time and money and headache. If you let yourself be a victim of this gray area policy for which there is no specific, real clear-cut guidance, then you end up getting burned, right? And I think that's a pattern we've seen in a lot of different stuff, right?
Yep.
All righty, let's see here. Lots of awesome questions today. Mr. 11944 says, if level 2 certified enclave is established by the prime, can they onboard subcontractor employees into their environment to prevent a level 2 requirement for their sub who can only achieve level 1?
So here's what's interesting around CMMC, and I was actually having this conversation with somebody from the CMMC. Oh my gosh, I just blanked. I'm sorry, I'm coming over some sickness. Anyways,
the shadowy cabal. Let's go with that.
Yeah, my brain's a little fuzzy. So there's two things to kind of think about here. One, there's what's the contractual flow down obligation. If they get CUI level 2 at either self-attest or certified based on what the prime is required to do as a minimum, and then the prime can elevate that if they see fit because it's a private contract. So that's one thing. You have to look at the contractual element in one. The second thing is if VDI makes everything out of scope that's accessing it, do I have to contractually flow something down if the asset that they're getting downstream is never in scope? So you kind of blend both of these conversations into a little bit of the paper copy situation, right? Where if the subcontractor, and this is how I'm interpreting it, I would recommend reaching out to DoD CIO, CMMC PMO's office, all those people. But if you blend kind of the paper language that they put in here, and said if there is no technology present by the sub and it stays paper and is never digitized, you don't have to flow down CMMC. If in the VDI world, they're never digitizing it, it stays at the prime, and they're not receiving digitized copies of that information downstream to the sub, I could see a world where you could justify not flowing down CMMC if that's what you're using. This is real-time computing here, right? Because it kind of is the mix of both worlds, because they will have no technology systems in scope for CUI.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just putting it out there. I don't know if it's true. I can't find really any holes in the logic, especially because of the paper CUI piece. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think it's probably worth a question to be raised, Jacob. Quite honestly.
I think so. Let's see. Pride One is asking the link to the Transcom CMMC site. I don't know if we threw that in there or not. It was just, I think if you just Google Transcom, you found it on their homepage, right?
I did. It's just a drop down. They have a CMMC under resources.
Let's see here. Trey said, any new conversations on the unpopulated joint venture certification issue? I haven't heard anything new.
No, just that cage codes have to be registered to some sort of CMMC UID boundary. You can't just have a lonely cage code associated with a JV that's not part of a boundary. Yeah. So that cage code has to be associated somehow. If it's left out there, the contracting officer is going to be like, you're not registered. You don't have a CMMC score. What's your SPRS entry? Because there's no correlation there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, John says, active bids. We are pursuing all the active RFPs cite DFAR 7025, Notice of Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Level Requirements. John, do they have the blank filled in? Are they all level 1? Do they vary? Let us know. So just to reiterate for everybody, DFAR 7021, 252.204, 7021 is the CMMC contract clause. 252.204, 7025 is the corresponding solicitation provision. They're both going to show up, but essentially the provision is there literally, like it says, to give you notice that you will have a CMMC certification level requirement in the terms of your contract. So sometimes you'll see 7025 without 7021. Often you'll see them both together, much like you'll sometimes see DFARS 252.204, 7008 as the notification provision for DFARS clause 7012. Jason and I did some podcasts a while ago on like the DFARS cyber series is what we call it. All of the provisions and clauses that go together. Good news is you don't have to worry about 7019 anymore because they got rid of it, and 7021 has changed recently with the revolutionary FAR overhaul. So there you go. All righty. Nicholas says, did you learn anything about the idea of a level 3 enclave and then subcontract to yourself with a level 2 enterprise question for manufacturers? I did not. I was out traveling this week, and so I did not learn anything extra about that question. We do have it on the list, though.
Yeah, I don't see where that wouldn't work, quite honestly, Nicholas. As long as the legal entity structure is set up in a certain way. We have companies that have 100, 200 opcos underneath them, right?
Right.
And that's exactly what they do, even without CMMC, right? The parent might win the award and then flow things down to each of their opcos servicing that. So
absolutely.
We'll do some more research, but right now I can't see any failed logic in that.
Let's see. Abram, your question keeps getting cut off. So maybe comment the second half or go to CUIHotline.org and copy it in there. And then we'll take a look at the details and probably add you to the queue for next week. Let's see here. These are some feedback on the on-prem certified to cloud migration significant change question. I think the reverse would be a bigger deal. Going from cloud-based to on-prem, you do get a bit of vendor lock-in from the switching of MSPs. Changing MSPs is a significant change. You know, I'm gonna have to sit down and think about this one on the beach this weekend because it's supposed to be like 85 degrees and amazing. I keep going back to this like famous philosophical thought experiment, the ship of Theseus, where it's like if I were to take one plank off of the ship and then set it over here and then replace it with a new plank, it's still the ship, right? It's still the original ship. If I were to replace 49% of the parts of the ship and then reassemble them over here, that's still the original ship. At which point, if I were to remove all of the pieces of the original ship and replace them with new parts and then rebuild the ship over here, which ship is which? Is that the original ship with all the original parts, or is the one that I slowly changed over there the original ship? If I change MSPs and my scope has not changed, my SRM has not changed, nothing has changed whatsoever. The technology stack, the way that things are implemented, I literally just replace an MSP analyst with a different MSP analyst. I change the company name with a different company name. I just ship of Theseus my MSP. Is that a significant change? I know that's very theoretical, but is that a significant change just because the company were to change? What happens if I keep the same company, but they sell it and a new CEO takes over and then he fires everybody on the team and then everybody who works there is brand new? He changes the company name and the logo.
Or a more common thing, what if the MSP changes their tech stack?
Yeah. What if you put a big ass motor on the back of the ship of Theseus? Yeah. Is that still a ship?
Right. That's right. I think it's really important to not have overly declarative statements around significant change because there's no clarity around it, right? We can make assumptions and we can provide justification. And this is why everyone's freaking out about it, because there is no definitive, real understanding of it in a CMMC world.
I think we're just going to have to call them. I think we're just going to have to go. What? Why can't I get rid of this? It's frozen. I think we're just going to have to call them. I think we're just going to have to call Ron. We're going to have to pull him out of retirement.
Yep.
We're going to have to get him back on camera. And I'm going to have to sit down with him and I'm going to be like, Ron, if you're listening, we love you, buddy. I know you're retired, but I know you're still out there doing your thing. Help me understand. Help us all understand. What was the philosophy behind significant change back in the day, whenever it was there? Because it's a constant thread through 853 and RMF as that, world has evolved over many decades. So now that obviously we're in a different space and a different program, like what was the thinking then? Like, how can we bring that thought forward into what's going on? Because it's breaking people's brains.
Yes.
Let's see. Abram says that would require a new assessment. This would be going on-prem to cloud. The C3PAO lobby says they need to change. They need to assess it.
Yeah, that's
fun. Of course, yeah.
I don't read the name of who that is, but hey, when it's a money-making activity,
right? Yeah,
might think everything.
Maybe don't ask those guys.
Yeah.
My answer is it depends. There are many variables that need to be considered to determine if this is in fact a significant change. Yep. I agree. Absolutely. Let's see.
What? For the most part, you get to define the variables, by the way.
100%. 100%. Mr. Yost says, if the on-prem servers and such are accessible by remote satellite offices, I could see the argument being made that you're not changing workflows, just the server location. So there's some nuance to how the workflows and data flows change. Absolutely. What do you think, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little far-fetched because of the significant architectural and boundary changes. Like architectural meaning I have an architecture to M365 or I have an architecture to on-prem. Like the function of it is not what's in question. The architecture that's supporting the function is what would be in question in significant change. So I might push back on that just a hair, but I get the logic. I mean, the logic of that makes sense in other ways. So.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, I don't know if you're still listening. Do you happen to be related to the people who run Yoast Archery products? Because out of Pennsylvania, because Yoast Archery is an awesome small business. If you do, say hi to Tracy. If you guys are into archery, let us know, because if you're probably familiar. Any bare bow archery enthusiasts out there? Anyways, we're over an hour. It's Friday. It's the end of daylight savings, everyone. No, it's the end of standard time. It is going to be daylight savings. So everybody go out and enjoy the time change. We'll still be here at the same time on Fridays, 10 a.m. Pacific. You guys like that segue? Woo! That was a smooth one. You can find us streaming on YouTube and LinkedIn. You can find us at CUIHotline.org. If we didn't get to your question, we'll add it to the queue. If you find this afterwards, you can add a comment, question, compliment. We'll add it also to the queue for next week. You can always message us on LinkedIn. You can find us at summit7.us. We got Summit 7 Live coming up in Fort Worth in 2 weeks, I think. So come hang out with us over there. And thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week.